alongside Neem and I. So with that, he just continued consulting back to the pharmaceutical industry. Side gig going on with Alex Goodman and that kind of work. But he also engaged in helping us with our little truck farm that Neiman started, field-grown cut flowers. And he was right there alongside me, wiring my barn that I was building, and building farm implements, and helping with irrigation, and anything he could get where he could contribute. It was always a joy to work side by side with him. He was a guy that could really document stuff. He would just detail things. He was way ahead of his time. If YouTube and do-it-yourself videoing had been in place, he would have been had a lot of subscribers. He would have had multiple channels, I'm sure. So then I just want to acknowledge his various volunteer groups that he was involved with, starting way back in the early years, where he met the Armstrongs, I believe, with the JCs, with the Lions Club, youth hockey coach. Montana, he joined the Reese Creek Volunteer Fire Department alongside myself and a bunch of other buddies there. Spring Hill Church, he was an active member there, and he was the main groundskeeper and chief auctioneer at their fundraiser event.
Because he told the best jokes.
Oh, he had folders of jokes that were very specifically categorized by clean, not so clean, and save for this for the Flatlanders. The Flatlanders are these ski dudes that come out every year and descend on mom and dad's house and get an earful. He also worked with the Quilts of Valor group and Meals on Wheels, and his last gig was with the hospital, local hospital, serving at their info desk and serving as a escort for people coming in. And he loved to say, I either pushed them around or told them where to go. That's the summary. Again, he could always spin off some detail if he asked to on any given day.
So, are you in the Navy?
Sure.
Yeah. These are quick but good.
Yeah, it'll be relatively quick, but so out in high school, Dad was in the Naval Reserve with a couple other guys. I don't know how many people there were in his class. It was less than 20, I think. There wasn't very many. But right out of high school, it was the Korean War was starting up, and the recruiter told he and his buddies they should sign up before they get drafted, so they went ahead and did that. They went up in the cities and signed up, and Grandma Alice was so mad, she got up there and she went up to the recruiting office and yelled at him and tried to get him out of it, but there was no getting him out of it, so which was lucky for us, because what ended up happening is he went to Chicago for his boot camp, and then through that process and the testing and everything, he wanted to be a Navy fighter pilot. And made it through all the testing, did great right up until the point where they did the manual dexterity stuff and having to flip switches in the plane and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't feel like he was able to do that. They weren't sure he wouldn't flip the wrong switch with his tremors, just like the rest of us three have. So he ended up getting nixed from that whole program. Well, they ended up deciding that he'd go into naval intelligence, and he went into naval intelligence and ended up going to San Francisco and being stationed at Treasure Island in San Francisco, and did a short stint down in San Diego for a little bit, but through that, went to a serviceman's social at a local Presbyterian church where he ran into Mom. I think she was there with somebody else at the time too. he ended up getting familiar and friendly with Mom, and they hit it off. And for the short time that the rest of the time he was there, he and 5 of his buddies had bought a car, and they were sharing it, and so they would go off. Methuselah, they named it. And one night before he left, it must have been after he left. I can't remember if it was before or after, but anyway, he said to Mom, he says, well, what would you think about becoming a farmer's wife in Wisconsin? And she said, well, that'd be okay. He likes to say that he wasn't really proposing, he was just kind of doing a little research. But ended up, that's how it ended up, they got together. And he spent 3 years in Guam, and he had a variety of experiences that we didn't, some of them were new, some we had heard before. One of them that he got there, so he was an electrical technician there for the Naval Intelligence, and they were collecting communications from Russia, Korea, North Korea, and everybody. And so he was climbing poles and stringing lines. He was doing fixing teletypes, all that kind of stuff. And he ended up, when he got there, he bought a washing machine and put it out in front of their Quonset hut and said, put a quarter in the can every time you want to use it, and paid for the machine and was making money off of everybody on that one. And that was a new one to us, I think, in this last couple weeks. He had a variety of other stories of being a tackling dummy for the football team, of which most of the other players were either NCAA college players or even some pro players. And so he obviously didn't have those skills, but he was willing and able to be knocked over and pushed around and all that kind of stuff. Let's see, he got stung super badly with black hornets all over his face. Couldn't even open his eyes at one point. And there was one time he was talking about laying some electrical lines, and he always went out with a hatchet. And he said, just in case, because you never knew what you ran into. Well, he ended up coming into this little clearing, and on the other side was this wild boar. And he said the boar screamed, and he screamed, and they both ran in opposite directions, and they were both happy about that. Let's see, what else? Oh, he became the kind of the banker for they have a lot of Filipino workers there that were doing a lot of domestic work, and they needed a way to send money back home. And they couldn't really send checks or cash, obviously, because it might not make it. So they would give him the cash or the money, and he would wire it to their family in homes, either Western Union or whatever they were using at the time. And so he became a banker and helping these guys out, helping support their families and stuff, which was another, obviously, way he was just helping people always through his life. I think that was most of the Guam stuff, but we realized through this process that it was the tremors were the thing that created us, because if he hadn't had the tremors, he wouldn't have met Mom, and we wouldn't exist. So that was one of the blessings of having that with Nancy and I especially, and Bob has it some too, but
Barely.
yeah. So anyway, so they got home. Just about wrap up Navy. Got home, and they planned the wedding and bought a car. They got married in San Francisco, and his dad and Mom and Dennis and brothers came out, and then they got in a car and drove south and all along the south and over to New Orleans and up. That was kind of their honeymoon on the way back to Wisconsin. And he told the story of Mom as they were in New Orleans, which we figured out must have been around Mardi Gras time. Got a real kick out of the fact that these people were driving through town just honking their horns all over the place. So Mom was reaching over, honking the horn as they're, parading through probably the French Quarter or whatever. And I just, knowing our Mom, it's really hard to picture her.
So my mouse quit and the tremors are bad, so I don't know where the show's going. But I would be remiss if we didn't spend a little bit of time on Norway. We went to Norway because of a couple named Hannah and Otto Garm, and they were doing sabbatical work in the Twin Cities. Ended up renting Marlene Fanning's place for that year, and they became our surrogate grandparents. And for whatever reason, my dad said it's time to get these kids out of their peer group, rip them into a place where they can't speak a word. And as a result, we became super Scandinavian, loved the troll songs. Dad did his big debut on The Amazing Dreamcoat, right? He was in the play there. And
traded jobs and homes with the Norwegians.
yes, we traded jobs and homes with the Norwegians. So we went and lived in the Norwegian home, and they came and lived in ours in Roseville. So that was very special because then you were really immersed with the fact that there is no TV in Norway, except for Gunsmoke and Pippi Longstocking. And Mom needed some support group because she had the developing children with her, and so they took Grandma Alice with, and it really, really shaped who we were in so many ways, and probably drove the tightness of our family more than anything. So, odd thing to do to your family, but hey, check out the fashion statements.
Go back. See that?
Hot pants. They were all my hot pants. All right, somebody's in charge of limericks. Jason.
Antoinette. Your pants are wet.
Yeah.
Sweet Antoinette. Your pants are wet. You say it's sweat. It's pee, I bet. Oh, Mike's back. So I was given the near impossible task of, I guess, trimming down and giving highlights on the unending library of limericks and isms from Limerick Dick. I have curated some of my favorites, and I will have to use some code words with young ears in the room, so hopefully you're able to pick up on those. Next one. There once was a couple from Bel Air. They began to jump rope on the stair. The banister broke, so they quickened their stroke and managed to jump rope in midair. I'm doing this on the fly. I didn't do that. When I was a young man, I jumped rope all day. But now, alas, I am old and gray and can only manage to jump rope twice a day. I think you get the idea. I'm not sure how I'm going to pull this one off, but there once was a lady from Wheeling who had a peculiar feeling. She laid on her back, jumped rope, and tickled her crack, I have to say, and peed all over the ceiling. All right, a couple more. Birds do it on the fly. Cats do it on the sly. Dogs do it and stick to it, so why shouldn't you and I? It's logic. Okay, well, I've been zooming back as we kind of went through this catalog of all his isms and sayings. I think what we all kind of came to the conclusion, several things about Limerick Dick. He was a very unique man in that he had an absolute steel trap of a memory. So he was reciting stories and poems from literally 3rd grade, 5 years old, even in his latest days. And I think one other thing I wanted to highlight, and a lot of people in the room are here because of this, like he was very welcoming and disarming with his humor. He was just a big kid at heart, obviously. And so 21 years ago, myself and several of the gentlemen in the back of the room started an annual tradition, which was mentioned earlier. We dubbed it the Flatlander Invasion. So we would load up in an RV and drive out there. So just picture Invincible is what we call Grandma, but Phyllis and Dick sitting quiet for weeks on end, and then suddenly 10 to 12 large wild animals just descend upon their house, and they open us with welcome arms. We make shirts every year. This is one of them. They always had a theme, of course. The first thing Grandpa would do, whatever he was wearing didn't matter, ripped it off and put the shirt on, joined in with us and started mixing gin and tonics and telling stories. And I think he did that with a lot of people in different ways. And he connected with people, and he would always remember the little isms or little inside jokes that you guys had, and we've talked about it in the crowd here, and that's what made him special. And just it was so easy to connect with him. So I mean that's just one example. He always talked about if someone falls asleep, you can sprinkle salt into their mouth, and they'll tell you their dreams. Well, there's a gentleman back here, Dustin Minky, who fell asleep after dinner one night on Flatlander, and we sprinkled salt, and nothing happened, so then we poured salt, a lot of salt, and he definitely said something. We weren't able to translate exactly what his dreams were, but literally from that moment on, every year he would ask, "How's Dusty?" and has he told you about his dreams yet? So he just picked up on the little things, and he would take them and bond with you over them, and that was just amazing. So that's really all I've got on the Limerick side. Apologies, kids. Hopefully you'll recover from that. But, oh yeah, did you want me to? Or
Yeah, go for it.
Well, and another example, well, I don't really know the backstory exactly, but there's a book here. Well, I forgot about the PS collection too, but there's a book.
It's coming up.
Oh, okay. There's a book here that's, 50 pages long of pictures and write-ups on Adopt a Highway signs. How did that actually come to be? You're gonna have to tell that first.
Yeah, well, Dad had this way of locking on to something that you would say in passing that had no real importance or anything. It was just something to tease you about as time went by. So you might go to town and you pass this horse that was always in this corral, and it was never doing anything but eating. And every time he went to town, he would point it out. Or the sight of a big bull moose. He and the Armstrongs developed this saying, and every time you're going to a park or anywhere around, he would bring up, "Well, we're going to try to find the sight of a big bull moose." Or all around a pig's ass is pork. That's no real meaning of it, and all the caregivers at the hospital wonder what the hell does that mean, but they would do it. And one time I got a little impatient with my mom, who I was helping in the last stages of her life too. And they would always come in and ask, "Well, what is your pain on the scale of 1 to 'Whatever," she said. Or, "What can we do to help you?" "Whatever." "Well, you can't do whatevers anymore. It's just not working for us, you know." And so then Dad locked on to whatever. So, the last week of his days, oh man, he was dishing out whatevers left and right. Really going full story back to the Adopt a Highway. I'd been conditioned by Dad by now to do this sort of thing. And so my wife had to be the recipient of all these times we drove around the countryside and came across Adopt a Highway signs. And there's a lot of them. So I would point them out every time we passed them. Dad caught wind of this. And he took it several levels higher than that. He and Mom went around the country, he took photographs of these signs, and he wrote prophetic, wise commentary associated each one. There's, I don't know, a dozen states represented here, and their adopted highway signs, different types, different colors, different groups. You've got to take a look at this and just see what kind of effort he put into this. This was surely the pinnacle of
Yeah.
that whole mannerism
It's
behavior.
either a poem or a limerick or something for every single thing.
Ad nauseum, you have to say it ad nauseum. Funny. And he would, every once in a while, go in when he was just a young lad with his dad. They did the one-act play of Little Nell. And Little Nell was this 20-minute, 25-minute one-act play, and he'd sit up there and recite the entire thing for you with all the theatrics with it.
All the different characters.
Yep.
You can't pay the rent, you must pay the rent, you must pay the rent. He'd start off, and it's just like,
And then there was, remember you guys?
Oh, another one, yeah.
Rooster.
Cockburn.
Cockburn.
When we were out planting in the flower fields, it would get kind of boring, and there would be rooster pheasants out and around, and they'd cackle, and I'd yell out, "Rooster!" and he'd yell back, "Cockburn!"